Hi everyone, and welcome to another tutorial in the Tower Defense series here on www.unitycookie.com. And in this tutorial, we're going to be finally merging in a lot of the items together. So going back to that fancy GUI scene we had previously, we'll bring in the flying enemies we created in a previous tutorial. We add in a actual cache value to the turrets. Drop those in, they'll all work. And as you destroy enemies, you will actually gain cash that you can use to purchase turrets, which will properly deduct from your account and so forth. So basically, we have a almost, I wouldn't say fully functional tower defense, but a lot of the core of it. So we're getting much closer to having this finalized. So that's all coming together, and let's take a look how we make it here. Before we get to adding anything new into the scene, such as the cache and purchasing and such of the turrets, we'll unfortunately need to do a bit of merging from the older scenes, especially because we now have this special level master object to create the waves and so forth like that, the flyer spawns, lots of new things or things we created in previous tutorials, which we now need to bring into the GUI scenes. We can put this all together. Luckily for you, I've gone through and taken care of all of it, figured out the best way to do it, so we'll just go through that step by step and won't be too much worry in it. So first of all, we'll want to bring in the turrets. So if you remember with the SAM turrets, we had added on some special items, and the same for the ground turrets, so they wouldn't shoot at the enemy, the flying enemies and such. We even changed some tags, a few things like that. So the best way to do this is you can simply select any of these turrets, or actually even better, just select their prefab that you already have created in the scene. So with the turret selected in the hierarchy, you can just click on select next to prefab and grab it right there. Right click on that and then go to export package. It's going to give you a few options here. These are just saying all the items that this particular prefab uses, and that's as long as you have the include dependencies checked on. If you turn that off, it will only export the actual prefab, which is basically just I'm pretty sure just a text file referencing, or some basic file referencing all of these assets. Of course, we do want to bring out all those because otherwise we won't have all the items we need. So make sure that's on and then click on export. And then you want to export that somewhere where you'll be able to pick it up and drop it into the other project, the new one that we're working on now. For myself, I dropped it right into sort of a base folder next to the project folder, and I called it turret_SAM prefab. And then do the same for the twin cannon prefab. So very simply select the twin cannon prefab, right click, export package, etc. Make sure again you have all the dependencies included. Once we have those, we just need to move back into the new project, the cache scene, where we're adding this in. And before we import those, let's actually delete all the old turret items just to make sure there's no conflicts or duplicates at all. Everything you need to delete would be under prefabs. We have the turret SAM and the turret twin cannon. Just go ahead and delete those. Under the materials, we can delete dark gray, dark red. And then lastly, in meshes, delete both the turret SAM and turret twin cannon mesh. In fact, we can just delete that entire meshes folder. So with those deleted, we can go ahead and import the exported prefabs. So just with the Unity project window selected that you're going to be importing them into, in case you have multiple Unity projects open. So get that selected and then just double click on the first one to import. Make sure everything is checked on and then click on import. Take a second or two to bring it in, and then do the same for the twin cannon. Okay, so now under turrets, once again another thing that probably should have been kept the same. We set up a different folder structure for the prefabs and such in the other scenes. So just looking at this, good learning lesson to keep things the same when possible. But this works out, it's okay. So we now have turret SAM and the twin cannon prefabs ready to go. So let's test this and make sure it works by going to the script that's on the main camera we had set up back in the day. And instead of where the old turrets were dropped in, let's drop in these new ones. So the SAM goes in number 1, or actually number 2, I believe. And the twin cannon prefab goes in the first slot. And let's give this a play. Okay, looks like it's working all right. Obviously we don't have the cache set up or anything like that, but we are able to place these just fine. So that's set up. Now we just need to move on to bringing in the level master script. Let's move back over to the other scene. This scene, we want a couple things, and while we're here, we might as well grab all of them, I guess. If you grab the flyer spawns, you can drag that into your project folder and create just a temporary prefab from it like I have here. So just drag and drop it in. I'm going to replace mine. And then just right click on that prefab and do the same thing where we will do export package. This will be just one item. Export and drop it in, again, an area where you'll remember where you put it. And then do the same thing with the enemy. So find the enemy prefab. So the attack jet prefab here. Right click, export, etc. And one last time you'll need to do that with the level master script and the player base script. And you don't really need to export those as a special prefab, I suppose. You could just find them in the project folder and drag and drop them as the text files into your new project that we're creating for the cache. So whatever way works best for you. Once you have those exported, we can move back over to the real scene we're working in, import those as well. So I'm going to bring in the flyer spawns, bring in the attack jet, and if you bring in the attack jet first without bringing in the level master script, you'll get this error saying the name level master does not denote a valid type. It doesn't exist yet, so Unity is getting angry at us. So I'll go ahead and just import those and make it happy. There we go. Red is gone. The yellows don't actually mean anything. So we have them imported, and now we can try dropping in just this base level master script, get it going a bit before we do any merging and make sure everything works okay. First thing to do here would be to bring in those spawns. So I'm going to just drag and drop them from my project folder up into the hierarchy and set them up. And it looks like they're all invisible at the moment. We can just select all of those and turn back on their mesh render so we can actually see them. And set them up at a location that will work to have them spawn in and fly across our screen just right. From experimenting previously, I found if you get 20, 25, and 65, it will have you set up just right. So then once we have those in, we just need to create an actual level master object like we had in the wave scene, create a tag for it, and then drop in a couple references on that. We're really just replicating what we had in the wave scene. So we can just go to game object, create other, create an empty object. Just create empty there. Make this our underscore level master, and we'll need to add the tag for that. So add a tag as usual, level master, and assign it. So you have that set. And we'll need to drop on the script, drop that on, and then set up a couple items on this. We need the wave health and score text. So we actually have those. Under the anchor right, there we go. So we have the score, drop that in there. Shields are the same thing as health in this case, and the wave text. So we can put all those in there. And later on we'll be adding some some code to the level master to have the cache text as well and various other things. So don't worry about that just yet. Down below under enemy prefabs, we'll need to drop in the enemy prefab that we just imported. So under enemies, attack jet, drop in the enemy prefab for that. And then we need to bring in the flyer spawns. Drag and drop that right in. And we can give this a test. So with that all set up, let's go back to the game view, hit play, and make sure everything works just fine. So we can still build items. Looks like ships are spawning in. Again, no cache setup yet. If we drop in some of these SAM turrets, sure enough, they go ahead and shoot at those enemy ships as they ought to. Ships explode, they add to our score, so everything looks good. And there we go, wave 2. Okay, so everything's working well. We can move on and begin setting up the scene for the cache system. So the first thing would be to select the level master and open up the script. So let's bring up the level master script and begin doing some editing on this. First and most obvious, we'll need a reference to the cache text and some starting cache and a couple other things like that. So under the GUI variables in the level master, I'm going to add a cache text item, also a UI label of course, and under score count, let's create a cache count. That'll be an int that'll start at 0 as well. Or actually, of course, they're going to need something to start with. Let's give them maybe $200 to start with. And then save that. Going back to the scene, we'll want to assign the cache text to that UI label. So just drag and drop in the cache item from the GUI into cache text. After that, we'll need to add in a cache cost per turret. So let's drop this. Create a new area down the bottom here for the turrets. We'll need this anyway when we start merging things in from the GUI script. So let's say cache or turret costs actually. That'll be an array of ints. And then we can assign some cache values to the attack jet itself. So just select the prefab, find its script, and edit that. Up at the very top, create a new variable, call it my cache value. So this is the value that it's going to give the level master, or sorry, give the player whenever this item is destroyed. So that'll be an int. And let's go ahead and set that at maybe $50 to start with. Not 50 like that, there we go. So when this is destroyed, we want it to not only subtract from the enemy count and add to the score, we now want it to also add to the cache count. So we'll just do level master dot cache count plus equals my cache value. So let's give that a test in game. And now if we set up a whole bunch of these to quickly destroy whatever comes at us. Oh, you know what? We forgot to add any kind of updating on the GUI there. We'll go ahead and do that next. But if we check on the level master now exactly how much cache we really have, it's up to 300. And we can actually watch that as another destroys. There we go, 350. So good thing for debugging over there in the inspector. So we know that that much is working. And now we get to the really fun part of merging all of the GUI script, the old GUI script, into the level master script. So that's all nice and together in one piece. The easiest way to start this would be just to grab all the variables from the in-game GUI script and drop them into the level master. But just so we keep things from getting all sorts of ugly and messed up, let's make a separate area. Actually, I'll just use this spot here. I'm going to rename this to, or just add a GUI items comment on there. So I know this is where I'm keeping all the GUI bits. So drop those right in there. And then I can actually cut and paste these GUI variables, since they should be down here now, right into there. So now we have the variables in, we can start bringing in the functions from the other script. We have a couple start options we need to take care of. Let's bring those into the level master's start. those in. And we have a lot to bring in from the function update. Let's just grab all of that. And drop it in here. Looks like we can actually get rid of this chunk. And drop that in. And again, let's separate that. Just to keep things clear as to what's going on here. Back to the in-game GUI. We have a couple custom functions to drop in, so we can grab these just as they are and drop them in all the way at the bottom here. So let's save that. See if once again anything breaks. Always good to test in steps. Looks like it's okay there. And we have a couple things that actually need to be merged together and not just dropped in so easily. Number one, we now have both an update GUI function and an update HUD function, so we really want to merge those into one. So I'll take all the items from update HUD and drop them in there. So let's find the update HUD. Here we go. Take those out and drop them into the GUI. And while I'm at it, we also want to add on a quick bit of code to update the cache count text. So we'll do cache text.text equals cache plus cache count. Just might as well add that in while we're in there. Okay, so the next thing then, we just moved or removed the innards of the update HUD. So we want to go around and find anything that's referencing or calling update HUD and have it instead call update GUI. Replace anything that says update HUD with update GUI. Looks like they were just the two, and let's remove the old one so it's not there at all. Now, I know that there are a couple different parts of the code in the enemy script, I believe especially, that are going to be calling the update HUD from this script, and I'm not quite sure where they are. A good way to figure out is to save this, go into Unity, and let it yell at you just like this. So Unity will now instantly bring up an error saying, hey, update HUD does no longer exist in the level master script, and tells me exactly where the problem is so I can go in there and fix it. Make this GUI, and the same for the other one. Makes life a little easier than trying to find those myself. Okay, there we go. The next step in this merging is to set up everything in the level master that we had set up in the GUI script here. So one way to make this a little easier is to create a separate inspector window. So if I add a tab and new inspector, then make sure you have the main camera selected, the item that has the old in-game GUI script, and then click the lock icon to lock that inspector on there. Then I'll take the other inspector and drag it out so it's a separate window. And now, no matter what I select, this inspector over here will stay looking at the main camera with the in-game GUI script on it. So I can quickly glance back and forth between that and the level master and add all the items that need to be added on there. So looking over here, first of all, we know that all the GUI items are down at the bottom, so we can start adding those in pretty quickly. So we have the build panel tweener. Looking over here, click on this, it'll bring it right to us. And the same for each of these. So this just helps make it a little less tedious. Just a click and a drag for each of these. This is set on placement plane only. For the colors, same thing. We can just click on the eyedropper tool, grab the color in there. Make sure you also set the alpha. For some reason, when you use the eyedropper tool, it never grabs the alpha. A little bit odd, but it looks like that one's at 190, this one's at 160. Set that here. There we go. Now we have the all structures array, so we just need to drop in the same structures there as well as these. I'm just going to do these first actually, since it's the same sort of drag and drop. There we go. And then these two. Make sure you're getting this in the same order as the old one was, because the code works on, iterates through those arrays in a specific order, so we want to make sure you drop them in the same order as you have in the old script. Next, we need to set up the buttons to reference the level master now instead of the in-game GUI script that they used to be accessing. So let's close out this extra tab so we can get some space here, and go into the UI items and start re-referencing these. So under each of the buttons, we can select all of these actually, and just drag and drop in the level master. Oops, there we go. Onto their target. So they should now all target the level master directly. Let's go ahead and test this, but first make sure and select the main camera, turn off the in-game GUI script on it, just undo the checkbox for now, and hit play. Alright, so panel opens okay. We can drop in turrets, and as they destroy items, it drops in or adds the cache to the value as it ought to. Check one more time, and there it goes. Let's go back into the script. First off, let's add in the cache text for each of the buttons down there. So going back to the scene view, going to select the Canon button and zoom on into it. So you want to add just cost for the text above each of these buttons, or the ones that are active anyway. So I'll just select the panel those are in, and then go up to the NGUI menu, create a widget, and I want to, let's actually drag and drop this down here so we can use it a little easier. Select the in-game atlas, of course, whichever font you'd like to use. I'll just go with the standard 32x scale that we've been using before, and a color. I'll actually set this as pretty much pure green, as if this were an available item. I think we'll set unavailable as if you don't have enough money to be red, and available to be green, and we'll add that right in. Maybe these will cost 50. There we go. And another one of these over here for the SAM turret. Let's say these cost 80. Make sure you click the Make Pixel Perfect button as usual to get those in just right. And then of course we'll want to label these, so let's call this cost text underscore Canon. And this one would be cost text underscore SAM. So we've got those in there. We just need to add some references in the actual script. First of all, though, I think we should move up all of these build selection items into the turret area that we created up here. So I'm just going to grab these, Control X them, and drop them in there. And I can just remove this comment. Okay, so we have that set up. Then we need to add a couple more items in here. Number one, we need a var cost text. That'll be a UI label, an array of those, and save that. Now we just select the level master and drop both of these into there. We'll just drop in first the Canon, then the SAM. Again, keeping with the same order. Make sure those are going on, just like so. We also need to add in the turret costs. So two elements in here, of course. First is 50, and the second is 80. And we'll do it this way just in case later on we want to be able to change this in code on the fly or something like that. Next, let's make sure that the level master is deducting the turret cost each time we place one. So going back into the level master script, let's find the area where we drop in the planes. So right about here, looks like line 126 or so. And whenever one is added in, we need to cache count minus equals turret costs. And again, this is why we use those nice and simple structure indexes and the arrays, so we can just do structure index. And since we have all of those turret costs in the same array order as the buttons are, when we place it, we're automatically going to just be able to use the structure index to subtract the exact amount that we need to. After that, we can just do an update GUI and we should have the amount go down as we place them. So there we go. Each time we place it, obviously we don't have any checks in place to make sure you can't go negative, but looks like that's working okay. So on to the next, which would be actually making sure you can't place it unless you're actually allowed to. So right up here under the if the placement plane is open, we also want to check if they should be allowed to drop in the turret. Or actually, let's put it in under the last hit object, this area where we're checking initially. So right upon the click, we're going to check if the player actually has enough money to place this turret. So we just need to say and turret costs, again using the structure index. Make sure it's less than or equal to the cash count that we currently have. And now we should no longer be able to place the turrets unless we have actually enough money. So we drop that, and now I can't place anymore. Same with this. Once this number goes up, suddenly I can place again, and so forth. So that's working. The last thing we need to do here is, of course, add in some code to make the numbers change between red and green based on if you have enough cash, and disable the buttons if we shouldn't be able to click on them, again based on the cash amount. So instead of putting this in individually and taking a bit more time, I'll just copy paste in some code that's already set up and just go over exactly how it works. Going back to the level master then, let's just scroll all the way down to the very bottom and drop in one last custom function. All this function needs to do is iterate over all of the structure buttons, and first of all check, can we afford this turret? If we can't, then we set the text color, so this text here, to red. We set the button graphic to be just a grayed out, disabled looking half gray. You could set this as something else if you wanted to, but I find this works well. We also need to set the button's collider to be disabled so that it can't accept any clicks or hovers at all. If the button, or if the turret for this button is affordable, we do have enough cash, then we want to set the text color to green. Of course, then we check if the structure index is the same index as the button that we're iterating over. So basically just seeing, is this button already the one that's selected currently? If so, we just want to set the color back from the gray. We're setting it onto the full on color, so it's selected. Otherwise it's not selected, we're going to set it to the off color. So it's affordable, but it's not the selected button. So we set it back to that. Lastly, we just turn on the collider for this button to make sure it can accept any of the hover or click actions for it. Now we just need to make sure that this check turret cost is actually called when it ought to be. And we could do this the long way by adding it in all sorts of different locations to make sure it's called, but we kind of have that taken care of for us already via the update GUI call, which happens whenever anything regarding the GUI is updated. So we'll just add that into here, drop it in as a bit of a piggyback. So at the very bottom of the update GUI, drop in the check turret cost function, so we'll call that up. And the reason we're dropping this in at the end and not the start is because if you put it up top, any of the color changes we make, so when we're disabling it and such, would be overwritten by this part up here where we're setting it based on the selection. So with that dropped in that one single place there, we can save it, go back into the game. Oops, change one thing I forgot. This, since I copy pasted over the code from a different script, you might have levelmaster.cache count here. Make sure you delete that. That's just a bit of extra left over from a previous code. So that's gone. Should be simply cache count. Save it back into the game, and we're set. So let's give this a play and see what happens. I can drop in the turrets while I have enough cash. Once I run out, they gray out, so I can't select or drop them in. If I get more cash again, I can drop them in, and it looks like it's working just fine. Okay, so we're all set. Just maybe one last thing to change. I'm noticing that these text items here are really hard to see, so let's add in a little bit to that on the NGUI side. We can select both of these, or one at a time actually, and under the effect option here in the inspector, just change that to an outline and make sure it's black and full opacity. and that way in-game we can actually see that text. So now it shows up much better, like so. And that's it. So everything is set to go. We've got the score, the cache, the waves all working. The buttons do as they ought to, turning on and off, depending on the amount of cache. We're all set there, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thanks for watching.